Player ragequtted when I didn't allow his Overpowered Homebrew. It's a pretty short story. I started a new campaign and got this player from Discord server. He seems okay at first, but as soon as we got to character creation he sent me link to his homebrew race. I don't really remember all that was in there, but it was some demigod race of ancestors to all the other races. I think's called this race Angels of Light, or Beings of Light or something like that. This race had amazing magic powers and abilities. It had immunity to all sickness and poisons, crazy health regeneration per every turn, +6 dexterity, and its own types of magic he called Magic of Light and Magic of Chaos. Both were completely overpowered already at level 1. He also already sent me a backstory of his character that was in a center of attention. Every wizard in the world wanted to capture him to get access his amazing godlike power he himself didn't knew how exactly worked and was too scared to use his full potential. I explained to him that this won't get into my game. At least not in this form. We could try to balance it and make it work, but he got really pissed. Said that I'm ruining his fun and it's better for him to leave the game before it even starts. So I guess the problem took care of itself. Edit. Sorry for poor English. Edit 2. It's crazy to see how many PPLs from the comments would just allow this guy to their game and then ruin it for him. You guys cruel. Sorcerer Player overreacts to a slip up and abruptly leaves the session because of it. Short story but really memorable for me because it was just so bizarre to me. Our party encountered an NPC that we eventually discovered is a dragon, and we were trying to investigate what kind of dragon he was to be prepared to confront him. With the clues that EM gave throughout the session and several good rolls on checks, we managed to deduce that he was a black dragon. Our wizard asked it out loud. So he's black? He was asking it seriously to know if said NPC was a black dragon. And he did not realize he worded it so ambiguously until we jokingly pointed that out. He was flustered and apologized for the slip up while we joked and teased him for it. But the table knew he didn't mean anything malicious, except for Sorcerer. While we were lightly teasing him for the slip up, Sorcerer also added how racist he was. At first we thought she was joining in on teasing him, but we quickly realized with how her tone escalated that she really was offended with the question. She started going off on how she was appalled at how racist the wizard was, and that she finally see his true colors. She also went off on Cleric who was telling her to chill, scolding him that, since he was black he should be more offended at wizard. Needless to say, we were dumbfounded. Wizard kept apologizing for his slip up, while things shifted quickly from us teasing wizard to us telling Sorcerer to chill out and placating her. Some of her words went over my head, but I remember one of the more bizarre things she said went along the lines of "You're justifying what he said was a slip up. But what if the slip up was killing someone? Will you still be telling me to chill out?" After some time of her going off on wizard, she did the "I just can't with you people" thing and left after we kept telling her she's overreacting and that none of us were siding with her. That's it, I guess. We never heard from her afterwards. I got word from Ranger and EM, who was the closest to her, that she ranted about it to their mutual friends, but she pretty much got the same response as the people from our table. Eater. Since the comments brought it up, I will add here that yes, Sorcerer is in actual fact White Eater too, for those who are curious about the teasing we did to Wizard. Basically when Wizard said that, Cleric and I joked by doing over dramatic, appalled gasps, while Ranger just addition. DM gave an amused look at Wizard and teased him by asking back, "You're asking if NPC is black?" And that's when it dawned on Wizard on how he just worded his question. That's literally it. Sure, I know how to balance fights. This is the story that happened just few minutes ago. Long story short, our party didn't had any ranged weapons. 5 of the 6 RPCs had only melee weapons. The only person who had any range attack was our wizard. We all knew that not having any ranged weapons can bite us in the ass, but our DM made it clear that he know what to do and he will balance all the fights. Session 1 was just few minutes ago. We got to our first fight and all the enemies, 10, had ranged weapons and were sitting on trees 1015 feet above our heads. All of them were either groups of 2 or 3 and were hiding, and when we enter battlefield they just spam us with arrows, and before turn 3 come to an end 3 of our PCs were down. and my character almost died because he got hit by 3 arrows from opportunity or surprise attacks at the same time. The only thing our DM said after the fight was you should thought better about what you choose and he lord. So yeah, that was my first session. I don't really know if I want to come back to this game. Edit. I saw many comments like you should retreat or you should bring range weapons. The biggest problem with this fight was that we didn't even had a chance to react. We didn't saw any of those archers at first, and when someone walked into their range he was immediately shot by 3 arrows and downed. I would be okay with just few archers, but not if they are in a tight group, sitting on a tree. Edit 2. I saw some comments saying that WR should have more balanced party, but there I have a question. Is D&D about balance? No, it's about having fun. If party wants to have 6 mil DPS fighters then go for it. I would be okay if DM would put like 3 times more male fighters to ever fight, just to allow everyone to get some kills. Remember that D&D is not a competitive game. It's about having fun. Sure, DM does not have to change everything, just so party can have fun, but isn't it better when everyone can do something in fight? Or maybe it's better to just loot at the party because DM made an encounter specifically to fuck with the party. Omnipotent NPC Jerks. Does anyone hate it when DMs introduce omnipotent NPCs? For some reason these NPCs are always jerks, but in a frustrating mess with the players kinda way. For example, I was playing a game where this ultimate sorcerer emerged from some crazy plane of existence. I made some joke about the situation and the guy teleported me to the astral sea for no reason, and then teleported me back. This was followed by a solid 3 hours of quirky behavior. That was neither endearing or amusing. It just kind of removed any stakes in the story and came off like he was just fucking with us. It kind of discouraged me to roleplay because this god level entity would just do something annoying. We were level 5 BTW. The session didn't even go anywhere with the story. Why do certain DMs do this? I felt like the session was complete waste of time. It just seemed to be this one sorcerer dude torturing us for the session. The only completely omnipotent character I know of in any published setting is the Lady of Pain in Sigil. The best part about her character is there are rules around her power. She's mysterious, but you basically have to provoke her. The response is to flay you alive. Generally speaking, unless the player is trying to kill their character they'll respect her. She enigmatic, cool, terrifying. A powerful character done right. Meanwhile my DM is trying to wow us with this ultimate magic man who can just teleport me to another dimension for no reason and is crazy. Made a character cry by accident when his character died. So the party I was ming for was attacked by kobolds during the night after a long day of fighting in the mountains trying to clear out a colony of them. This was a planned ambush and I have them a short rest out of it instead of a long rest. During the fight the ranger was downed and down to doing death saves. The other 4 party members fled the scene with the exception of the wizard who had levitated up into a tree to hide and observed the following scene. I didn't want to kill off the character and decided to let the character have all his saves regardless of what was going on. And he passed and got up surrounded by kobolds. He then fought them one by one being felled time and time again, killing off 4 of the 10 remaining, until he finally failed his death saves. With his fresh corpse on the ground the kobolds left alive ate the body breaking the bones in their teeth and crunching his cartilage into dust. Now it was at this point I noticed a very disturbing sound. It sounded exactly as I described, a crunching, tearing, chomping sound. Unknown to me, my wife had given my 2 Dachshunds terriers some pig ears a couple minutes before, and they snuck under the table to eat them while the fight was going on. So the death scene came with full gory sound effects. Oops. That time my party skipped all boss fights because of a simple oversight. So, for a mini campaign, about 4 sessions long, the main thread sat on top of a 10-story tower. Every floor had a boss in it, with their own theme and everything. Took quite a while to homebrew everything. Fun stuff. But then the party casted a simple spell on the entire party, invisibility. Kinda forgetting this spell even existed. None of the bosses could handle it. So yeah, they made the entire group invisible and sneaked their way to the top. Had them roll stealth on every floor vs the passive perception of all the bosses, and only one succeeded. However, a great performance check made it look like a voice in his head, so even that they managed to skip. Now I could have just punished them by giving some of the enemy's true sight retroactively, but figured that punishing the players for being creative made no sense. TL. Doctor, I create an epic sequence of boss fights. Party skips them via invisibility. Bit more lighthearted than most stories here. But if you ever met, you probably can imagine my pain. DM doesn't support PvP but only selectively. I was reading a post, and it reminded me of another terrible game. This was in my 3.x days. It was a faceta-face game, remember those? At a friend's house. I had chosen to play a half-orc sorcerer who was also devoutly religious to Oladamara, god of mischief Ike. Another player, upon learning of my choice, rolled up a cleric, specifically also of Oladamara. I didn't think anything of this at the time. Then the campaign starts. This cleric keeps passing notes to the DM who reads them, smiles and or chuckles. Then the game goes on. Minutes later, I'm having an interaction, trying to persuade or intimidate, usually when I'm suddenly seized by terror, or I start speaking gibberish, or I piss myself, etc. Turns out Mr. Cleric is using his god-given powers to make me look like a fool. At first I'm completely confused, but I'm able to use some rolls to figure out who's doing this to me. I mostly try to ignore this and move on. That is, until the cleric casts magical terror on me in combat, causing me to run headlong into a group of bugbears and almost die. At this point, I'm so completely done. I pass a note to the DM. Prepared action. The next time the cleric opens his mouth, I cast Fireball with his position as ground zero. The DM frowns and immediately reveals my note. He says I don't allow PvP at my table. Me, with the most fed up expression on my face. So what do you call what he's doing to me? That last spell almost got me killed. DM. That's just harmless fun, in line with how his character would act. Even if you died, he would have brought you back. Me. Well, I have a scroll of revive in my pack. If this kills him, I'll bring him back. I cast Fireball on him. DM. You can't. I won't allow it. Me. Then I cast Dimension Door. DM. You don't know that spell. Me. Oh but I do. This here I gesture to his house. Is your dimension. And right there I gesture to his front door. Is the door. I stormed over to it, yanked it open, screamed "GOF yourselves," and slammed it behind me. Haven't spoken to any of them since. What's in a name? A villain by any other name would smell as foul. This is really minor horror, all told. Noon was hurt, Noon left the game, and if you're going to accidentally name a character what he did, well, could definitely be a worse choice of character. So, playing a game with a longtime friend and fellow player, now first time DM, and it's fun. Germanic setting, lots of weird corruption around we need fight. Yesterday's session, an NPC begins narrating a disturbing backstory of a god so corrupt, the Chaos Worm, that even hearing his true name caused madness, and hence it was impossible to write or say his name by act of the other gods. But some inscriptions from before the ban remain, and cults worship him. One such cultist was burned, full of corrupted worms. But a crow ate his eyeball and mutated, and it's believed this man, Heinrich Himmler. Turns out that he was putting names together, and didn't realize that was also the name of Icknow, a literal Nazi. But, hey, at least it's a villain, right? 4 hours of DM planning ruined in an instant. Prior to this campaign, I had never even touched D&D. Since it was my first time, my friend and experienced DM helped me create my character. While creating my character, I noticed a field in the character creator that basically allowed me to list items that I would have on my person before even starting the campaign. Now, I know how that could be used for story purposes, but I just sat there trying to think of something funny that I could use that for instead. I eventually asked my DM friend if I could have a 55-gallon drum of lube on my person, and if it could be hidden to be used at a random time for comedic effect. He said yes. About 3 sessions into the campaign, and my entire party decides to travel down a hole in a well, leading to an underground dungeon. We are still standing under the hole that we climbed down when we all feel a rumbling and realize that there is a myriad of little burrowing creatures digging their way to us through the walls. Eventually they surround us, and we have zero clue what to do. I'm talking thousands of these little pinchy, crawly things all around us. Then, it got real. RDM sets a timer for 1 minute and 30 seconds for us to make a decision. After which the creatures would basically be at our feet. With seconds left, I suddenly had a brilliant idea. I explained to my party about the secret item. And they all likely laugh, but don't understand why I chose to bring it up at that time. The thing is, lube, specifically oil-based lube, is flammable. I specify that, and they quickly understand, and we basically go fire in the hole and escape back up the well shaft, leaving the lube barrel uncapped. Once everyone is up, we throw a match down, causing the whole place to go boom. We all share a good laugh before we see that RDM is a bit salty. He then tells us that he had stayed up for hours the previous night, and that he even had designed a custom map, complete with traps, bosses, etc. He was a bit sore, but laughs about it right with the rest of the group now.